The legendary birds are the OG group of legendary Pokemon. Their base stat total is above the average Pokemon and usually are obtainable towards the later half of the game. But what if you could obtain them at the start of the game, and which of them is the best? I did 3 separate playthroughs with each of the legendary birds where I picked them as my starter and use each of them in their own separate playthroughs to see if they have what it takes to be fire red and leaf green. I'll summarize my findings in this video, and here are the rules I used for this challenge. I don't want any of them to have any unfair advantages, so they're all getting neutral natures. I'm also not going to use any held items just to make it a little more challenging. This is going to be a solo run for each of them, and the only time I can use different Pokemon are for HMs and some non-boss battles to prevent overleveling. Speaking of overleveling, I'm going to install a level cap for each of the gym leaders. The only time I can exceed this level cap is if the Pokemon cannot get past them without leveling up further. It's going to be a little different for the Elite Four though, because that's a gauntlet where you got to go through 5 trainers. So I'll allow them to take on the Indigo League at the champion's highest leveled Pokemon. Also, I'll allow healing items, but I can only use the same amount of healing items as the opponent. I think this is fair because they gotta take on anywhere from 2 to 6 Pokemon by themselves. If the opponent can use healing items, then I think it's fair that the birds can as well. If you like videos like this and you want to see more, then please consider like, sharing, and subscribing. I apologize if my voice sounds a little different. I came down with a cold and I'm still recovering from it. But anyways, let's begin. I changed Squirtle to each of the birds for their separate runs. That way, the rival will pick Bulbasaur. The reason I did this is because if the rival were to pick Charmander or Squirtle, it would create some unfair advantages and disadvantages for the birds. Bulbasaur means they can all hit his starter for super effective damage. So now let's take a look at how Articuno does in its playthrough. Articuno objectively has the worst defensive type of the 3. We all know how bad Ice is defensively. Add Flying into the mix, and now it's weak to Electric, and it loses its resistance to Ice. Let's also not forget that it's 4 times weak to Rock, so naturally, you think Brock, Lieutenant Surge, and Blaine would be its worst possible matchups, but that's not entirely true. Brock is the Rock-type gym leader, but both of his Pokemon happen to be part Ground-type, and their special defense is garbage. Powder Snow may be weak with only 40 power, but it still hits for super effective damage against his Geodude and Onix. Base 95 special attack isn't half bad, and it's more than enough to take care of his Pokemon, so Brock is actually an easy win. Now, Blaine should be able to burn Articuno to a crisp, but if you know how to work around Articuno's obvious weakness, it doesn't really have that hard of a time soloing Blaine. By the time you reach Blaine, you've already beaten Misty, meaning you've obtained the TM for Water Pulse, and that changes everything. Water Pulse only has 60 power. Sure, it's not that strong, but Articuno can also learn Rain Dance, so by the time it reaches Blaine, it can use Rain Dance to boost the power of its Water-type moves by 50% and reduce the power of all Fire-type moves by 50%. Suddenly, Articuno doesn't have its back against the wall and can put the pressure on Blaine. Lieutenant Surge, on the other hand, is a different story. He doesn't go down that easy. This guy is a genuine roadblock because his entire team knows Shockwave, which is a guaranteed hit and hits Articuno for super effective damage. Pikachu and Raichu also have Thunder Wave and Double Team, and Raichu is pretty fast, so it's going to be able to outspeed thanks to its base 110 speed. Even with healing items, RNG has to be on your side. You can beat him, but it's not going to be that easy, and it's probably going to take multiple tries to win. That said, I'm not going to be too harsh on Articuno here because Zapdos and Moltres also struggle with Surge. None of the birds have a reliable answer to him, and they can all be paralyzed by his Pokemon. But if we're talking about Articuno's worst matchup in the entire game, then we need to talk about Lorelei. Lorelei is the first member of the Elite Four, and she specializes in Ice-type Pokemon. Articuno's greatest strength is its Ice and Water-type attacks, because not many Pokemon in the game resist both types. But Lorelei's team was crafted in a way to make it the perfect counter to Articuno. First off, she has Cloyster, and Cloyster is a PP wasting nightmare. It has Protect, which just burns through your move's PP. It also has Dive, which makes it semi-invulnerable the turn it is used before it attacks the next turn. And if I want to use Rain Dance to boost Water Pulse's power, she likes to override it with Hail. Cloyster has a base 180 defense, so even if you're trying to hit it for neutral damage with Aerial Ace or Steel Wing, it's just chipping away at its health. Articuno's base 85 attack isn't going to break through that kind of bulk, so its best option is to use Water Pulse boosted by Rain Dance, but she still has several other Pokemon Articuno has to deal with. Slowbro is just as bad because it also has some good physical defense, therefore physical attacks aren't going to do that much damage. Yeah, you can use Water Pulse, Ice Beam, or Blizzard, But Slowbro also has Amnesia, so not only does it resist those moves, but Amnesia will allow it to absorb those attacks more efficiently once it raises its special defense. Don't forget that it has Yawn, which is a guaranteed way to put Articuno to sleep so that it can freely fire off Surf or Ice Beam. And then there's Lapras, an even bigger problem. Lapras is also Ice and Water type, so it's another wall to both Ice and Water type moves. But unlike Cloyster, Lapras has the ability Water Absorb, which heals it if it's hit by a Water type attack instead of dealing damage. So now, your strongest option is off the table. Lapras also has Confused Ray, and if you know Gen 3 mechanics, you'll know confusion is no joke in this game. These days, it's a 1 in 3 chance that a Pokemon will hit itself in confusion, but back then, it was 50%. That means every time you try to attack, it's literally just a coin flip on whether or not Articuno is going to get hurt. Combine that with Lapras's natural bulk and you'll see why Articuno has its work cut out for it. Lorelei is truly a beast for Articuno, but the rest of the Elite Four don't give Articuno that much of a challenge. It has answers to all of Bruno's Pokemon, Agatha isn't bad either, and most of Lance's team is weak to Ice. Even the champion isn't that bad. Pidgeot gets one-shotted by Ice Beam, so does Rhydon. Arcanine isn't that scary as long as you have Rain Dance up so that you can hit it with Water Pulse, and just spam Ice Beam to defeat Venusaur. But now let's take a look at Zapdos. Right off the bat, Zapdos doesn't get the smoothest start. It's actually walled pretty hard by Brock, because by the time he reaches Gym, it only knows Thundershock, Thunder Wave, and Peck. Thundershock and Thunder Wave are useless in this battle because Geodude and Onix are both ground type, therefore they are immune to electric type attacks. Therefore, Zapdos has to rely on Peck, which only has 35 power. Brock's Pokemon have massive defense, so Peck is barely going to chip away at their health. It is an egregiously tedious battle, but they both can raise their defense even further, and if they do that, then Zapdos is going to take about 1 HP. Onix also has Bind, Rock Tomb, and Screech, so unless you grind, Brock ends up being one of the toughest fights in the game for Zapdos. But once you get past Brock, Zapdos can show what it's capable of. It certainly has the easiest time against Misty. Thundershock is going to tear through her team far quicker than any of the birds. Lieutenant Surge, despite being the electric-type gym leader, isn't a great matchup for Zapdos. His Pokemon resist all of Zapdos' attacks, so it's stuck dealing not very effective damage. And since Surge's team has Shockwave, it'll never miss, and because Zapdos is part Flying type, that means it's going to take neutral damage. It's more or less the same with Articuno, where you need the stars to align to execute a plan, or you need to pray to RNGesus. With Lieutenant Surge defeated though, he awards you with a TM for Shockwave. Believe it or not, but Zapdos learning Shockwave gives it a huge edge over its counterparts. You see, Articuno and Moltres are stuck with Powder Snow and Ember respectively. Both moves have 40 power. Zapdos getting access to Shockwave fairly early on means it has 60 power, which never misses, and paired with Zapdos' massive base 125 special attack, it hits like a truck. Add Stab into the mix, and it's got a move with 90 power by mid-game. Now, technically, by this point in the game, once you reach Celadon City, Articuno can have Ice Beam, Zapdos can have Thunderbolt, and Moltres can have Flamethrower. But the catch is, you have to farm coins at the game corner, and you need 10,000 coins just to purchase 1 TM. I don't think it's worth the grind, and even if I did, I don't think it would change how I rank these Pokemon at the very end, as I'll explain later. By the time Zapdos reaches Koga, things are looking really good. Koga's whole strategy revolves around using Toxic, lowering your accuracy, and raising his evasion, but Zapdos doesn't care. It can learn 2 moves that always hit, Shockwave and Aerial Ace. If you're running both, you literally bypass his entire gimmick. Muck has decent special defense, but Aerial Ace will target his defense, and it can't be dodged. Weezing, on the other hand, has high physical defense, but low special defense, which is perfect for Shockwave. And once you beat Koga, you can use Surf outside of battle, which lets you reach the power plant, and inside is the TM for Thunder. In this game, Thunder has 120 power, making it twice as strong as Shockwave. Pair that with the Rain Dance, which Zapdos can already learn at this point, means Thunder will never miss in the rain. Now, Zapdos has a move with 100 accuracy, Thunder, which is coming off of its base 125 special attack, plus Stab. This combo is Zapdos' bread and butter for the rest of the game. And when you finally reach Blaine, Zapdos sets up with Rain Dance, so his fire-type attacks aren't going to do that much damage. And now, it can just spam Thunder, which is going to nuke his entire team. Then there's Giovanni. And yeah, Thunder's useless here since his entire team is ground types, so they're immune to electric type attacks, but Zapdos is surprisingly capable of clearing Giovanni's team with not that much difficulty. Steel Wing covers both of his Rhyhorn, and at level 49, each of the birds learn a specific move. Articuno learns Ice Beam, Moltres learns Flamethrower, and Zapdos learns Drill Peck. Yeah, I know, weird, right? Drill Peck has 80 power, 100 accuracy, and a high chance to crit. Surprisingly, it's very effective at taking down the rest of Giovanni's team. When it comes to the Elite Four, Zapdos is just bullying its opponents. Lorelei goes down easy. Thunder one-shots Dugong, Cloyster, and Slowbro. You can then use Thunder or Steel Wing to take down Jinx. Bruno is even easier. Thunder is not even necessary because Drill Peck and Steel Wing can hit his entire team for super effective damage. Agatha's whole team is no match. Thunder just wipes them all out. Then we've got Lance. He might be a little more of a challenge than his acquaintances, but still no match for Zapdos. And finally, the champion. The only real threat is Rhydon, and even then, as long as it doesn't land back-to-back Rock Tombs, Zapdos is fine. Just go for Steel Wing and get it out of the way. Pidgeot and Gyarados are non-factors since they're gonna get destroyed by Thunder. Venusaur can't really do anything either, so his entire team are just sitting ducks until Zapdos wipes them all out. So it looks like Zapdos is able to clear the game as well, but now let's take a look at Moltres. Now, Moltres right off the bat struggles the most in the early game. Each of the legendary birds are weak to at least 2 of the first 3 gym leaders, but Moltres is weak to all 3 of them. Just like Zapdos, Moltres is at a disadvantage against Brock, but unlike Zapdos, it can at least do something. Yeah, it only knows Wing Attack, Ember, and Fire Spin, but Ember is enough to do some decent damage. Sure, his Pokemon resist the attack, but again, they have poor special defense. Onix knows Rock Tomb, which Moltres is 4 times weak to, and that can end the fight in about 2 or 3 turns. But if you manage to outspeed, and it doesn't go for Rock Tomb, or Rock Tomb misses, you can still sneak in and win by spamming Ember. So yeah, the Brock fight is doable, but it's just a dice roll. You either coast past him, or you're gonna eat rocks. Then comes Misty, and it's not exactly much better in this fight. Starmie is faster, and it has Water Pulse, which is practically game over if Moltres gets confused. And let's not forget that Starmie has Recover, so even if you get lucky and land a few hits, Starmie can just undo all that progress if it wants. Moltres just isn't built to take on Starmie, but luckily, it has the highest base attack of the 3 birds, and it knows Wing Attack, which is stronger than both Articuno's Gus and Zapdos' Peck, so with enough critical hits, it can actually best Misty. Then you reach Lieutenant Surge, and surprisingly, Moltres had the easiest time taking down Lieutenant Surge. That might sound weird since it takes the most damage from Shockwave, but it hits his team the hardest. I will admit, Moltres landed 2 critical hits back-to-back against Raichu, and Raichu was just spamming Double Team. I'm sure if it went for Shockwave, it would have hurt, but I'm not gonna lie, I spent so long trying to beat him with Articuno and Zapdos, so I'm gonna take what I can get. Erica is a joke. Grass types have no business being in the same room as Moltres. Everything on our team just folds to Ember and Wing Attack, so Moltres is more or less following the same path as Zapdos, but it's just a little less effective because Zapdos' Shockwave is stronger than Moltres' Ember. But Moltres can give Zapdos a run for its money once it learns Sunny Day. This will boost the power of Fire-type attacks by 50%. Now factor in Stab, and Ember is more than twice as powerful than it normally is. But this serves as a double-edged sword against Blaine. You think Moltres could just overpower his team, but that's the furthest thing from the truth. Sunny Day makes Ember stronger, sure, but it's also going to make his Fire Blast stronger as well. So obviously it struggles against Blaine, but it's not impossible. Once Blaine is defeated, he gives you the TM for Fire Blast. Moltres can learn Fire Blast, and it has the same base special attack as Zapdos. But unlike a Rain Dance, which doesn't boost the power of Thunder, Sunny Day will boost the power of Fire Blast, meaning Moltres is the biggest nuke of the 3 birds. That is insane, but it does come with the downside of Fire Blast only having 85 accuracy, so missing one can cost you a match. On the other hand, there's Flamethrower, which it learns right before taking on Giovanni. Between the 2, I would say Flamethrower is the better choice. Yes, it has less power, but it has 100 accuracy, meaning you don't have to worry about missing. And once you get Flamethrower paired with Sunny Day boosted even further with Stab, Moltres has a move with enough raw power to put Zapdos' Thunder to shame. Thunder has 120 power, but with Stab, it's raised to 180. However, Flamethrower has 95 power in this game. Once you factor in Stab and Sunny Day, that brings it up to 213.75. or just round up to 214. Now, my math could be wrong, so let me know if this is correct or not. Coming off its base of 125 special attack is no joke. Anything that doesn't resist this move is gonna get one-shotted. Moltres is capable of burning most of the Elite Four to a crisp. Slowbro is Lorelei's only non-ice type, so it's her only Pokemon which resists Flamethrower, but even then, it's still not surviving 2 of them unless it goes for Amnesia. Bruno is even easier. All of his fighting type Pokemon go down to Flamethrower. Agatha is in the same boat, so Moltres is just cruising as long as it goes for Sunny Day. But then there's Lance, and this is where Moltres really hits a wall. Every single one of Lance's Pokemon resists fire. Dragonite, Dragonair, Aerodactyl, even Gyarados, they're all gonna shrug off Flamethrower. And the worst part is Moltres only learns fire-type special attacks. So once you run into something that resists fire, you're stuck with only physical attacks if you want to use a different move. That's bad because Moltres' attack stat is decent, but not amazing when it comes to Lance and his Gyarados. What makes it worse is that Lance leads with Gyarados, which has Intimidate, lowering Moltres' attack from the start. Its only reliable physical attacks I would say are Aerial Ace and Fly, especially because it gets Stab, but anything else really isn't that great. But his real threat is Aerodactyl, which is dangerous because it has Ancient Power to hit Moltres for 4 times damage. You need to either get super lucky with the defense boost from Steel Wing beforehand, which only has a 10% chance to activate, or you need to burn Aerodactyl to half its physical attacks. As powerful as Flamethrower and Fire Blast are in the sun, neither of them are capable of one-shotting his Pokemon. So overall, this fight is a huge obstacle for Moltres. Finally is the champion. His main threat is Gyarados, but once Moltres gets that out of the way, the rest of his team crumbles. Most of them can't tank a sun-boosted Flamethrower, not even Rhydon. So like Zapdos, Moltres truly shines at the endgame on its path to become champion. So there you have it. I honestly think all 3 of the legendary birds are quite good at soloing the game, but how do they rank compared to each other? Taking the bronze medal is going to have to go to none other than Articuno. Articuno has a strong start against Brock, but Misty and Surge stop it dead in its tracks. Water Pulse helps provide more coverage, something I'll say the other birds lack, but I wouldn't say it's enough to make it better than its counterparts. Sure, Articuno steamrolls Erica, but so do the other 2 birds. They can all hit her with flying type moves to hit her for super effective damage, and Articuno has the lowest base attack of the 3, so its attacks are the weakest against her. It's got the highest base special defense, so it can absorb hits the best from Sabrina, but like I said, it's the weakest offensively. Because of its weak offense, Koga is just too much of a challenge, thanks to Toxic and his tendency to make it tough for you to hit his team. And in second place, we have none other than Moltres. Moltres may be able to output the most damage, but what really holds it back is how many opponents put it at a disadvantage. The first 3 gym leaders can hit Moltres for super effective damage, while Blaine and Lance resist its fire-type attacks. But Moltres does fare better against Sabrina and Koga though than Articuno does. Sure, Articuno can hit Giovanni for super effective damage, but Moltres isn't falling far behind. Once it sets up Sunny Day, it's gonna go to Pound Town. 4 out of 5 of Lorelei's Pokemon are part water type, and even she is left powerless before Moltres. Like I said, the only challenge in the Elite Four is Lance, but even though Moltres had a rougher start than Articuno, it starts to catch up by mid-game. But I will say that Articuno versus Lorelei was much more difficult than Moltres versus Lance. Moltres is also able to become champion, and I'd say it's only better by a hair than Articuno. And finally, the best legendary bird to use in Fire Red and Leaf Green is none other than Zapdos. Don't get me wrong, the other 2 birds are good, but Zapdos is without a doubt the best of the 3. It has the best defensive type, being weak only to rock and ice, and just powers through most of the game. The only real challenge Zapdos has is the first gym leader, Brock, because it only has Peck to hit his team. Misty is not even a factor, and Lieutenant Surge is also pretty difficult, but like I said, all 3 of the birds struggle against him. But after Lieutenant Surge, it's smooth sailing from there. Shockwave has 60 power, so Zapdos can output more damage than its counterparts since their elemental moves only have 40 power. But let's say you teach them Ice Beam, Thunderbolt, and Flamethrower respectively once you reach Celadon City. Even then, it's not going to change anything. The 5th and 6th gym leaders don't interact with their types, so you're going to be dealing neutral damage no matter what. It's not going to influence their battles in any way. And after Koga, Zapdos can pull ahead even further once it learns Thunder and Rain Dance. Sure, you can teach Articuno Blizzard and Hail, and Moltres Fire Blast and Sunny Day, but they're just not as effective. Fire Blast still has a chance to miss, and while Blizzard can never miss, it's not going to get that 50% boost in power. Zapdos versus the Elite Four and Champion is like taking candy from a baby. It has 0 difficulty against any of them, and the champion pretty much just relies on 4 of his 6 Pokemon because Pidgeot and Gyarados get one-shotted. Zapdos with Thunder plus Rain Dance is powerful and reliable, something I can't say about the other two. It just fares the best against most opponents in this game, and it's incredibly consistent, so it's easily the best. But anyways, that's gonna do it for the video. I hope you enjoyed, and do you agree or disagree? Let me know in the comments. Originally, this video was going to be much longer. I was going to document all 3 of the legendary birds' journeys from beginning to end, but I had some technical difficulties on my end, and I ended up losing a lot of my progress. There was no way I was going to start back from the beginning, especially after I got this cold. But if you want to see more videos like this where I compare how good Pokemon are in a game, then let me know. Depending on how well this video does, I could try making an hour-long version like I was originally going to do, or maybe I could just do something where I live stream it. But yeah, just let me know. So, I'll catch you in the next one. Later.